Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe if you like what you see. Obviously, if you're here, you read the title, so let's get right into it. So, should you take a gap year? The most important things that you need to make sure you have on your application if you're going to apply at the upcoming FICO is one, you have to have clinical experience, because how can you prove that you want to be a physician if you haven't had any clinical experience? You also need some research. And I mean, like if you apply to Eastern Virginia, they're like a community service school. You don't really have to have research to go there, but research is always good. It always makes you look good, always makes you stand out, especially if you can get like a publication or a poster or oral presentation at a research conference. You also need to have something unique that makes your application stand out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be medically related. So for me, the thing that made my application stand out in my mind, I think, is I had a lot of teaching and tutoring experience. So yours didn't have to be teaching and tutoring. It could be dancing, it could be playing an instrument, it could be volunteering with animals, it could be whatever job you have in maybe like retail and you're into fashion or something. I think those are really the three most important things that you need to make sure that you have on your application: clinical experience, research experience, and something unique. Not necessarily medically related or not even something that you think of as special, but you need to be able to articulate its specialness to you. I could use myself, for example. So I used my teaching and tutoring, and I just kind of talked about how I have a passion for it and I enjoy it. And then I also talked about how through my various teaching and tutoring experiences, it taught me how to be patient with people, how to listen to people, how to change my communication style to fit the style of my student. It taught me how to be flexible and adaptable, and how all of those qualities that I learned are important for a physician to have and will help me better be able to understand, relate to, and care for patients. So it's all about how you spin it, for lack of a better term. And to spin something doesn't mean to falsify something. So I don't want you to lie on your applications, but I want you to be able to seriously look at all the things you've done, even the things you don't think are significant, and really be reflective of how those things helped you in your journey, helped you grow, helped you learn things, and how those things could possibly be applicable to medicine. And that could be your unique thing, because in every single medical school interview I had, they asked me about my teaching and tutoring, and I was able to talk so much about it because it's something that I really am passionate about. So find something unique to put on your application to make you stand out. If you don't have those three things, it might be a good idea to take a gap year so you can work on those things. But let's say you have clinical experience, you have research, you have your unique thing. You may also consider taking a gap year if you need to improve your MCAT score, or if your GPA is suffering a bit. You might want to do a post-bac or master's program. Now, if you ask me, I am kind of like anti-post-bac, because why not get a master's degree instead of a post-bac certificate? Why retake undergrad courses when you can excel in master's courses? I just think they look better. I like the idea of having another career. And granted, this is just my own personal opinion. But like when I'm talking to my friends and stuff, I'm like, no post-bac, do a master's. Like you can get a master's in medical sciences, and they have MCAT prep, and they're like pipelines into specific medical schools. And all right, since you're still here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Just to name a few of the institutions that have a Master's in Medical Science program, there's Emory, the University of South Florida, Duke, Morehouse, Meharry. All of these institutions and more have a Master's of Medical Sciences or some variation of that name that prepares students for medical school. Lots of these medical sciences programs will include MCAT prep, and they also act as pipelines to those respective medical schools. So you need to work on your research experience. Any master's program would work for that. So my master's program at Georgetown in integrative neuroscience, I have an entire research practicum. So I have a whole 4-credit class where it's dedicated to research, and if it were not for COVID, I would be in DC working in the lab 12 to 15 hours a week. So if you need research experience, you can get it through a master's program. You can also go and work for a company. I know several people who graduated from my alma mater who went on to work for research companies, biomedical research companies, to get that research experience. So as you can kind of tell, I am so pro master's, and it looks great on your application. I really think that having my master's program listed on my application was really helpful to the success and uniqueness of my application, and I was asked about it several times in my interview, which is why I think that. So yes, should you take a gap year? Well, let's go through the checklist. Do you need to increase your GPA or raise your MCAT score? Gap year. Do you need to increase the amount of research or clinical experience you have? Gap year. And I think those are really the main reasons why someone would take a gap year. But if you feel like you have sufficient clinical experience, which does not necessarily have to be scribing or EMTing or CNAing. I only had shadowing experience. I had less than 100 hours of shadowing, but I got into medical school more than once. So it's not really how much experience you have, but the quality of it. What did you learn? How did you grow? How did it reinforce your decision for going to medical school? Don't think you need to take a gap year because you only have 60 hours of clinical experience, and all of those clinical experiences involve shadowing and nothing else. That's okay. You can get into medical school with just shadowing. You can get into medical school with a low GPA. You can get into medical school with a low MCAT. You can get into medical school with not so much clinical experience. You can get into medical school with no research experience or very little research experience. You cannot get into medical school if you have all of those things. If you have all of those things, you need to take a gap year or two. But if you have everything and you're missing one thing, that's okay. So don't be nervous. Medical school is competitive, but I promise you will get in. You do not need to be some supercalifragilisticexpialidocious person to get into medical school. You just need to have the passion. So I hope this video was helpful to you all. I hope it gave you a little bit of clarity of whether or not you want to take a gap year and some things you could do in your gap year. Comment your stories and your experiences below. Really love to see where you are. Anyway, that was super long-winded. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you guys next week.